In racing, some stories are written by the big money factory teams. They're tales of careful calculations, wind tunnels, and corporate suits making calls from boardrooms. But then there are the stories that feel like they shouldn't even exist. The ones that ignore logic, flip convention on its head, and somehow still happen. And this is one of those. It's about a bike that by all accounts shouldn't have worked, built around a boat engine, and ridden by a guy who was told flat out it was impossible. Back in the early 1970s, the glamorous, cutthroat world of 500cc Grand Prix motorcycle racing was run by Italian aristocrats and Japanese powerhouses. And then, out of nowhere, it got shaken up. The guy behind it? A self-taught engineer from New Zealand. No fancy degrees, no top-level racing resume, and a bike that looked like it was pieced together in a shed. His name was Kim Newcombe, and this is the wild story of the Koenig 500, the boat-powered underdog that almost toppled the giants. But before we set off on this incredible ride, if you love underdog stories, make sure to hit subscribe, because this channel is all about the forgotten legends and wild machines that changed motorcycling forever. And don't forget to like this video so more people get to hear the story of the friendly Kiwi Kim Newcombe and his insane boat-powered bike. Now, let's dive into the race that put the Koenig 500 on the map. To really get how crazy the Koenig 500 was, you have to picture what Grand Prix motorcycle racing was like in the early 1970s. This wasn't just a sport, it was a global theater of speed and a battleground for national pride. The premier 500cc class was the kingdom of one name, MV Agusta. For the better part of 2 decades, the Crimson Machines from Italy had a crushing grip on the championship. Their motorcycles were exquisite, complex, and brutally effective masterpieces ridden by gods of the sport like the legendary Giacomo Agostini. Agostini wasn't just a racer, he was a full-on superstar. With movie star looks and unreal talent, he collected world championships so consistently that he demoralized the competition. The MV Agusta team ran with the resources of a Formula One outfit, backed by huge budgets and armies of engineers. Their dominance was so absolute that the championship felt like a foregone conclusion before the season even began. After Honda left the sport in 1967, MV Agusta's rule went from dominant to untouchable. The racing itself was a terrifying ballet. Bikes were getting faster than the tracks could handle, but safety was an afterthought. Circuits were often just public roads lined with stone walls, trees, and buildings. Runoff areas were a luxury, not a rule. The riders, a traveling tribe known as the Continental Circus, were a special breed of fatalist heroes. They lived out of vans, chasing prize money from one lethal European circuit to the next, knowing that any given Sunday could be their last. Into this world of Italian nobility came whispers of something strange out of West Berlin. It wasn't from a motorcycle company. It was from Koenig, a company famous for building ferocious outboard motors for hydroplane racing boats. The idea of putting one of their engines in a Grand Prix motorcycle wasn't just unconventional. To the racing elite, it was laughable. How could a crude boat engine possibly compete with the thoroughbred power of MV Agusta? They were about to find out. The guy who flipped the script was Kim Newcombe. Born in Nelson, New Zealand in 1944, Kim wasn't the type you'd expect to shake up the glamorous world of Grand Prix racing. He was quiet, practical, and had this almost instinctive feel for how machines worked. No fancy engineering degree, his classroom was muddy motocross tracks and oil-stained sheds. If it had an engine, Kim could figure it out, tweak it, and usually make it quicker. He was a talented motocross rider back home and later in Australia, where he settled in 1963 with his high school sweetheart, Janine. Kim's talent was the real deal, completely natural. There's this legendary story where someone handed him a borrowed speedway bike and told him to give it a go. He had never raced one in his life, but somehow he went out and won his first 4 races straight. No learning curve, no warm-up, he just clicked with it instantly. That was Kim in a nutshell. He didn't just ride machines, he understood them like there was some unspoken language between him and anything with an engine. Then, Kim's path took a big turn in Melbourne. While working as a marine engine mechanic, he came across the machine that would shape his entire legacy, the Koenig. It was a 494 cubic centimeter, 2-stroke, flat-4 boxer engine originally built for hydroplanes, and Kim was instantly hooked by how light, simple, and powerful it was. Then, in 1968, opportunity knocked. German motorcycle brand Maiko offered him a shot to chase his motocross dreams in Europe. Without hesitation, Kim and Janine packed their bags, left Australia behind, and set off for Germany to start the next chapter of their adventure. But when Kim and Janine landed in Germany, the Maiko job was postponed. So, to keep busy, Kim's experience with Koenig boat engines landed him a short-term gig at the Koenig factory in West Berlin. That job at the factory in West Berlin changed everything. Tucked away in a corner, he spotted a rough-looking motorcycle with a Koenig engine jammed into an old BSA frame, basically abandoned after flopping as a racer. Most people had written it off, but Kim saw something different: possibility. Dieter Koenig, the company's boss, still believed in his engine, and Kim looked like the guy to make it work. Forgetting Maiko, Kim took over the project. No degree, no Grand Prix background, just guts. He was about to walk straight into the lion's den. This story of Kim Newcombe is a powerful reminder that passion and ingenuity can challenge even the biggest giants. If you find stories of underdog engineering and incredible human spirit as inspiring as we do, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. You won't want to miss our next dive into the forgotten heroes and radical machines of motorsport history. Now, let's continue. So the engine driving this whole project was anything but typical for a motorcycle. The Koenig 494cc Flat 4 was a two-stroke beast, but it wasn't designed for land. It came straight out of the water. Two-strokes are famous for cranking out huge power while staying light, and the Flat 4 boxer setup kept it compact, ideal for blasting a hydroplane across a lake. But when you tried to bolt that same engine into a motorcycle frame, all those strengths turned into headaches. What worked perfectly on water suddenly created a mountain of problems on the track. First, cooling. A marine engine uses the water it's sitting in as a giant limitless radiator. On a bike screaming at 10,000 RPM, it would cook itself. Kim's first big job was to invent a water cooling system that could handle the heat. Second, there was no gearbox. Outboard motors drive a propeller directly. A racing motorcycle needs a multi-speed gearbox to stay in its narrow power band. Kim had to figure out how to graft a transmission onto an engine that was never meant for one. Then there was the layout. Most bikes, like the MVs, used engines mounted across the frame. A boxer engine is wide, so mounting it that way would kill cornering clearance. Kim made a radical choice. He mounted it lengthwise, with the crankshaft pointing front to back. This made the bike incredibly narrow, but also long and low, like an oversized 50cc racer. Finally, the exhausts. Two-stroke performance depends entirely on the design of the expansion chambers, those big, curvy pipes. With cylinders facing both forward and backward, routing 4 massive expansion chambers was an engineering nightmare that required a spaghetti-like arrangement. This wasn't just tuning an engine, it was a total reimagining of how a motorcycle could be built. And Kim, the self-taught Kiwi, was going to have to invent all the missing pieces himself. With the problems laid out, Kim Newcombe rolled up his sleeves. He was basically a one-man factory team: chief designer, lead engineer, fabricator, and mechanic. His solution for the gearbox was brilliant. He took a tough Norton clutch and mated it with a 6-speed gear set, connecting it to the Koenig engine with a custom chain drive. This Franken transmission had to survive the violent power pulses of the two-stroke, which led to a lot of early failures. For the chassis, Kim designed a new frame. It used a massive steel backbone with the long engine acting as part of the frame itself. This created that signature low, narrow, and long motorcycle. He paired this custom frame with top-shelf parts of the day: Seriani forks and Koenig shocks. The cooling system was his masterstroke. Kim engineered a custom water cooling system and, in a brilliant move, created a liquid-cooled magnesium sump fixed to the bottom of the engine. This pulled heat away from the crankcases, a solution years ahead of its time in motorcycle racing. And then, the exhaust's the key to unlocking the engine's power. 2 chambers swept up over the engine, exiting under the seat, while the other 2 snaked down and around the bottom. This intricate plumbing was essential to get the 85-plus horsepower the Koenig would eventually produce. At just over 250 pounds, about 113 kilograms, the bike's power-to-weight ratio was off the charts. The bike was even fitted with American tillets and carburetors, usually found on snowmobiles, because the engine's intake ports were incompatible with typical motorcycle carbs. The result was a machine that looked and sounded like nothing else on the grid. It was a beautiful Frankenstein's monster, and now there was only one thing left to do: race it. After building the machine, Kim faced an even bigger challenge: learning how to race it at a world-class level. Despite being a great off-road rider, he had no road racing experience. Undeterred, he got a racing license in Germany. In his very first race on pavement, at the Ava circuit in Berlin, he did the unthinkable. He won. The win sent a small shockwave through the German racing scene. In 1971, the factory hired Aussie racer John Dodds to ride the bike in the World Championship. with Kim as his mechanic. The bike was fast but fragile, and a string of DNFs led Dodds to quit. So for the 1972 season, Kim made a gutsy call. He'd go it alone, not just as the builder, the mechanic, and the guy calling all the shots, but also as the rider. While legends like Phil Reed and Giacomo Agostini rolled in with full crews of mechanics and endless resources, Kim, with a limited budget, was the one spinning the spanners late into the night. His wife Janine pitched in wherever she could, and his Aussie friend Rod Tingate was usually right there beside him. Together, they kept the Koenig alive against the biggest names in the sport. The 1972 season was a learning curve, but the potential was clear from the start. In his first international race of the year at the fearsome 14-mile Nürburgring, Kim shocked everyone by finishing third. The Koenig was no longer a punchline. It was fast enough to blast past the factory MVs on the straights. Kim's reputation grew quickly, especially in Germany, where crowds chanted his name. Midway through the season, though, disaster struck. A crash at Hengelo left him with several broken neck vertebrae and sidelined him and prematurely ended his season. Even with missed races, he still ended the year with 2 podiums and finished an impressive 10th in the World Championship. A notable achievement for a rookie on a home-built special. The joke about the boat engine wasn't funny to the competition anymore. With his sights set on 1973, Kim and the Koenig were coming for the crown. The 1973 season began with a new challenger. Yamaha had returned with a potent 2-stroke for the brilliant Finnish star Jarno Saarinen. Saarinen won the first 2 races, but tragedy struck at Monza, where he was killed in an accident, leading Yamaha to withdraw for the year. Amid all the turmoil, Kim Newcombe launched his charge. He opened the season with a solid 5th in France, then grabbed a podium in Austria. Suddenly, the Koenig wasn't just quick, it was dependable, and Kim was racking up points. Then came the Yugoslavian Grand Prix. In a stunning performance, he set the fastest lap, took the win, and pulled off the unthinkable. He moved into the lead of the 500cc World Championship. A self-taught Kiwi riding a bike he built with his own hands was on top of the most prestigious motorcycle series in the world. The paddock was in disbelief. Phil Reed, now MV Agusta's lead rider, was amazed to learn Kim had only started road racing a few years earlier. The Koenig was now faster in a straight line than the mighty MV Augustus. The David and Goliath story was real. Kim, his wife Janine, and their young son Mark were part of the tight-knit Continental Circus community. Kim also became a passionate advocate for rider safety, often clashing with race promoters over dangerous track conditions. Meanwhile, the championship became a tense duel between Kim and Phil Reed. Kim finished second at the Dutch TT and scored high points in Belgium, Sweden, and Finland. His consistency was astounding. Week after week, he pushed the Koenig to its limits, using incredible lean angles to carry speed. In the end, the experience of Phil Reed and the power of the MV Agusta factory were just enough to clinch the championship. Kim Newcombe, however, had secured his place in history. He finished the season as the runner-up in the 500cc World Championship, ahead of the legendary Giacomo Agostini. It was a truly remarkable achievement. The championship was over, but Kim wasn't done. In August, he entered a non-championship race at Silverstone in the UK. He brought an even more powerful bike, its engine bored out to 680 cubic centimeters to compete against larger 750cc machines. That extra speed would put even more strain on its components, especially the brakes. The day before the race, Kim walked the track to study every detail. That's when he noticed a nasty dip right before Stowe Corner, a flat-out right-hander at the end of the long straight. On the outside of the turn sat nothing but a bare wall of wooden railway sleepers. No hay bales, no protection. Alarmed, Kim went straight to the clerk of the course, Vernon Cooper, and asked if hay bales could be put in front of the wall. Instead of listening, Cooper blew up, furious at the suggestion and even threatening to ban Kim if he ever interfered again. The wall stayed bare. Race day, August 11th, 1973. For the first 6 laps, Kim was untouchable. On the fire-breathing Koenig, he led a stacked field that included stars like Barry Sheene and Phil Reed. But on the 7th lap, disaster struck. Flying down the hangar straight, the bike's old-school drum brakes, already at their limit with the 500cc, stood no chance against the power of the 680cc motor. They faded completely. Kim couldn't slow down. He ran wide at Stowe, wrestling the bike for nearly 100 meters as it bucked and kicked, his legs flailing. For a moment, it looked like he might save it. But then, Kim fell and slid straight into the very wall he had begged officials to protect. From a distance, the crash didn't look fatal, but Kim had suffered critical head injuries. He was treated at the track but never regained consciousness. 3 days later, on August 14, 1973, he was declared brain dead. His wife, Janine, made the heartbreaking decision to turn off life support. Kim Newcombe was just 29 years old. In a cruel twist, the clerk of the course, who had refused Kim's safety request days earlier, was said to ask what happened to the rider at Stowe. Then, almost casually, he suggested maybe some straw bales should be added after all. Kim Newcombe's death was a profound tragedy, ending the life of a gifted engineer, a fearless racer, and a devoted husband and father. He was posthumously awarded second place in the 1973 500cc World Championship, a lasting tribute to his incredible accomplishment across just 2 Grand Prix seasons. But his legacy is more than just one season's results. Kim was a pioneer. The engineering solutions he created in his small Berlin workshop, advanced water cooling, and effective expansion chamber exhausts helped write the blueprint for the 2-stroke racers that would dominate Grand Prix racing for the next 25 years. Just 2 years after his death, Giacomo Agostini won the 500cc championship on a 2-stroke Yamaha, ending the 4-stroke era that Kim and the Koenig had so bravely challenged. His story is one of the most fascinating and tragic in all of motorsport. It's the tale of a man who single-handedly developed, built, maintained, and raced his own machine at the very top level. His life was captured in the award-winning 2006 documentary Love, Speed, and Loss, which used Janine's home movie footage to tell their remarkable journey. If you love uncovering stories like this, make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell, because there are so many more forgotten legends waiting to be told. Today, the legend of the friendly Kiwi and his boat engine beast stands as the ultimate underdog story, a reminder that you don't need a factory to build a king. Sometimes all it takes is a dream, a shed, and the heart of a champion. Thanks for watching.